I spend an awful lot of time in the car. And one of the things that I do in the car is I listen to a lot of podcasts. But I was listening to one the other day that was a few months old, I think. But it made a really, really valid point that has been sort of echoing in my mind. And it was talking about email. Now, this video is not about email, but the point of the discussion on the podcast fits. When we send an email, the tone of the email is totally determined by the person receiving the email. So, for instance, if somebody from my department sent me an email about a new project they'd like to start, and they've laid out all the particulars of, it's kind of why the rationale, why they want to do this, and what it would entail. And as a result, my response to them is, sounds good. And that's it. Sounds good, period. Not even sounds good, exclamation point. Just sounds good, period. The person on the other end of that email has absolutely no idea what I mean by that. The person receiving the email doesn't really know what to do with that. Does that mean that he really thinks it sounds good? Or does that mean that, did he say that with a smirk on his face, like it's a sarcastic thing? Sounds good. So the tone of the email really is dependent on the person receiving the email. And so here's the point. In the last few weeks, at the time of filming this conversation and posting it online, there's been a huge awakening in our country about the way that we deal with students in our schools. I have students in my office all the time who come in there because they were on their cell phone in class. They use the F word toward a student in the class. They refuse to do their work, or they were otherwise disruptive in some way, and the teacher will remove them from the room and send them to my office. And at some point, I will have to deal with whatever happened. And when I have students of color in the office, many times what I get is, this is racist, Mr. Childers. This is racist. Over the course of the last couple of years, I've come to take that more thoughtfully, maybe, than I did at the beginning. I'm not going to say they're right. I'm not going to say they're wrong. What I am going to say is that I think there are times when we do things as teachers, I know I did as a teacher, where I may overlook something a couple of students are doing because they're doing everything else I've asked them to do. They've learned how to play the game of school. But I may not overlook the actions of another one or two students because they are constantly not doing what I asked them to do, because they've never really learned how to play the game of school. And so the question comes down to, is this really something they should be in the office for, or is this a conversation that I need to be having with this student to try to figure out what's going on? I think one of the things that we have learned over the course of the last few weeks as the nation has risen up in protest against the horrific and brutal killing of George Floyd, we need to take more time to be reflective and think. It's no longer enough to say, as a white educator, for me at least, it's no longer enough to say, I'm not racist. What matters is the person reading the email, the person getting the discipline, the person on the receiving end of whatever I'm doing. What is the perception they have? And if they are perceiving those actions as racist, what do I do about that? And that's where all of the restorative interventions come in that we've been trying to put in place in schools across the country. I still go back to one particular student that I arranged for a restorative conference with his teacher, and he came to me afterwards and he said, "Thank you, Mr. Childers, for making me do that." He didn't want to. He said, "I've never had a white teacher apologize to me before." And that's powerful. We'll see you next week.